These are the 4 most secret and least talked about units that you've probably never heard of. I know that some of these were units I had never heard of, and most service members don't know about all of them either. Comment down below if you learned something new, or if you've got another secret unit that I may never have heard of, so that we can learn together. The very first one here is the NOAA Commissioned Officer Corps. This is one of the 8 uniformed services. This is not a Department of Defense or Department of War. This is actually the Department of Commerce. Now, officers wear Navy-style uniforms, and they follow Navy rank structure style. Now, in case you're nosy and curious, NOAA stands for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Their mission is collecting environmental, atmospheric, and ocean data. They operate these research vessels. They also fly Hurricane Hunter aircraft, and they deploy weather buoys, they map the ocean floor, and on top of all of this, they support the National Weather Service, the National Ocean Service, and marine fisheries, right? So they are essentially an environmental officer who is here to help with all things oceanographic. Now, here's why it's secret, right? Because they deploy, they operate ships and aircraft, they wear medals, ribbons, and rank, and yet basically nobody knows they exist, right? I didn't even know about them until I started researching this topic, because I was like, I feel like I'm missing something because of what a friend said. And lo and behold, there they are. They do get VA benefits. And really, unless you're in the weather or environmental space, you probably have no idea these guys exist. Now, number 2 on this list is a USPHS, which is the United States Public Health Service Commission Corps. And ironically, this is the one where we had a lady join the war room recently, and somebody's like, yeah, she's in the medical corps. And I was like, oh, in the Army? No, like she's in the Public Health Services Corps. And like I was digging and I'm like, is that not, I was like, that's not DOD. What is this? This again falls under the Department of Commerce. And in fact, this lady is eligible for all of the same benefits as DOD personnel, which is why we were like, oh shoot, yeah, this is totally valid for being in the War Room Mastermind. Now, this is not an armed force, but this is fully uniformed and deployable. They're led by the U.S. Surgeon General. And again, they mirror those U.S. Navy style ranks and uniforms, right? So when I was looking at this stuff, I was like, oh, they actually do look very Navy-esque, and this is why. Now, their mission is to protect the health and safety of the United States, right? Which sounds pretty cool, because we like health and safety. Actually, let's be real. Both are pretty boring topics until you don't have them, and then they become very important to you. Now, they deploy for things like hurricanes, wildfires, pandemics, and humanitarian efforts. And in essence, they're there in support of disaster and getting ahead of major issues on the safety side, and then obviously they help with the health side. They also staff major federal agencies such as the CDC, the FDA, the Indian Health Service, the NIH, and FEMA during federal missions. This is secret because they wear uniforms, they deploy, they PCS, and they earn military-style benefits, and yet again, 95% of the population has no idea they exist. This is actually the one that kind of started me researching this video, because we met somebody who joined our mastermind where we help service members and vets achieve financial freedom, and I thought that they had gotten through without having been a service member or vet, which is our main initial criteria. You have to be a service member or vet. And then as I dug in, I was like, oh no. This is 100% a U.S. uniform service and eligible for the VA benefits that we can help them with. So this is pretty cool to have discovered. Now, third on the list, we've got Army Space and Missile Defense Command. Now, yes, this is a part of the major Army component under the Special Operations and Missile Defense, but this basically operates like its own branch, because there are people who spend their entire life basically dealing with missiles defense and within this branch and don't cross-train or work with other services, and they're basically just kind of secrety squirrel. I have a friend who can neither confirm nor deny does this. They mainly support U.S. Space Command and Space Force, and their motto is the strength of the nation in space. Now, these guys operate Army satellites and space sensors. They also support missile defense systems like THAAD. They also do a lot of developmental work for high-energy lasers and directed energy tech. They also do a lot of work to provide space-based intel surveillance and reconnaissance, which is very helpful for our intel community and our troops, especially when deployed or in operational mode. Now, here's the thing. Most folks think that Space Force now handles all space operations, so this is kind of gone in the dark. But in reality, the Army plays a huge role behind the scenes, and most people are unaware of this. And SMDC soldiers quietly support almost every major combatant command in the world, but again, you might never have heard of it. You can stay broke and blame the system, or you can learn to play outside of the wire. I didn't build a life this big by playing it safe. War Room's the game plan. Scan the QR code or click the link down below, and let's roll. And number 4 is the Air Force's 24th Special Operations Wing. Now, I know some of you are just herniated the disc hearing Air Force and Special Operations in the same sentence. That said, the Air Force actually does have quite a bit on the special ops side, right? This is not a video about that, but they've got combat controllers and parajumpers or PJs, and they're pretty baller. So the 24th Special Operations Wing is all of these components, right? So this is the Air Force's Ground Special Operations Force. These are the most elite Air Force operators outside of Tier 1 units, and they're part of AFSOC, which is Air Force Special Operations Command. Now, under the 24th Special Operations Wing, or SOW, we've got combat controllers, CCT, which I just talked about. These guys do, they call in airstrikes, they run assault zones, they're attached to soft teams. These are essentially JTACs on steroids, and they're really cool. Then we've also got the PJs, Pararescue, which is essentially elite medics that perform personnel recovery and combat rescue. In fact, we actually had, when I was in Afghanistan, we had a medevac where the PJs flew in on the bird to pick up our injured Marine. And those dudes were in like flat Kevlar rifle, gym shorts, and Nikes. It was pretty dope. I was like, oh, these guys don't look normal. And yeah, it turns out they were PJs, I found out later. Then they've got Special Reconnaissance, SR, which is formerly Special Operations, Weather, Deep Intel Mission, stuff like that. We've got TAC-P, which is essentially, this is select units, but this is the JTACs that coordinate air-to-ground fires. So this is like the combat controllers similarly, but specifically just in the JTAC and, targeting space. These guys are direct action, they do reconnaissance, they do personnel recovery, they do air-ground integration, they do precision strike coordination, and they work alongside Army Rangers, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and Marine Raiders, amongst other personnel. Now, here's why it's secret, right? Because everybody knows about the SEALs, the Rangers, Delta, Raiders, and all that stuff. But most people don't understand that the Air Force actually does have special operations service members that are really good. In fact, when you think Air Force, you probably think Chair Force or pilots, and that's about it, right? But again, I have worked with and seen PJs and combat controllers, at least in some instance, as well as been around long enough to have heard all the stories, and these guys are legit. So that was 4 uniform branches that you've probably never heard of. What do you guys think? Were you aware of Public Health Services, or NOAA? These guys wear the uniforms, do the missions, deploy worldwide, and yet most people have no idea that they exist, so they're very hush-hush. Hey, if you guys want more breakdowns of like the hidden side of military life, hit that like, subscribe, comment in the video. What would you like to know more about? What kind of secret squirrel sneaky stuff would you like to learn more about? Make sure you check out the resources in the description so we can help get you on track.